Fantastic. Then, welcome to the launch event of Women in Urban Mobility. I'll now be your introductory speaker. It is my pleasure to welcome you here. Today we are going to listen to various testimonies of marvelous, empowered women in the sector of innovation and urban mobility. If I would be able to start by thanking all of you to be here. And mostly, I would like to start by thanking the 3 women that have guided me in this sector. First of all, when I first started as an intern at the company that I am right now, CARNET Barcelona, which is a partner of the consortium, I had the pleasure to work with Hellenic, who guided me through this sector that I didn't know anything about because I have a background in lawyering. So she guided me, she told me the way, she told me what were the issues. And therefore, I started to grow as a professional in urban mobility. The second woman that guided me through that was Laia, who with Alexandra guided me through the second. I finished my internship and I went to a meeting thinking I'm going to get my internship renewed, or I guess I hope so. And they smiled and said, you know what, we believe in you. So we want to give you an opportunity to prove yourself. I would like to make you a junior project manager at the age of 22, while I was still studying. So the second woman that empowered me through urban mobility was Laia, with the guidance of Alex. And I am really happy to tell you and to thank you here for giving me the opportunity to speak up. And last but not least, I would like to thank a third woman, which is my mom. I know it's typical, but one of the main values that my mom told me was to speak up. To always say what you think, to implement your vision, because no one can tell you to shut up if you have good ideas, or ideas at all. Because the important thing is that you implement what you believe in. So it is my honor to introduce you to Orlie. Orlie is an entrepreneur in the mobility sector. She calls herself an ad, I just call her Women with a Vision. And she will tell you a little bit more about the perspective of women in the urban mobility sector. So, Orlie, come in. Thank you.
I need to be able to move. Okay. I might have to drink while I do this. So I'm Orlie Solgrupa. I've been 17 years now in the field of mobility. I started in the mission room of an F-16 squad and then commander of course in the Israeli Air Force. After the army, I was recruited to operate a private aviation fleet. And then after my BA, I founded an electric motorcycle company, which I sold my half 7 years ago. Then I represented the Israeli transport sector in the European Commission and in Europe for joint R&D. And in the past 4.5 years, I was CEO of a community called EcoMotion, which is a smart mobility community. It has over 600 startups and 13,000 community members in the field of mobility. And now, in the past year, I brought in a new CEO, moved to the advisory board, and I'm now a partner in a VC called Moderator Capital, which invests in startups for mobility and energy for mobility, very broad. Women in Mobility is something I founded late 2018, because when I joined the EcoMotion team, every year they do this amazing main event. It's beachfront, entrepreneurs and executives from all over the world coming together, drinking beer, learning and talking about innovation, but one thing really, really bothered me. And that was that there was no line to the women's bathroom. And as a woman, I'm really, really used to standing in line, so if there's no line, the gap is even bigger than what we see in the eye. So I founded Women in Mobility in order to A, grow the number of women in the field, B, create a platform for them to explore opportunities and share things that can come to the table, whether collaboration or a new position that comes out, network, we're talking about that. And then the third was to give women tools for growth. This week actually, it's been a long week, we did a negotiation workshop on salary and titles, which is something that women don't tend to do enough. So that was a great tool, but also public speaking and other things. So today I'm going to take you on a journey in my world. I feel like we're just starting now to understand that we need to put more emphasis on women. Also in femtech, it's a new thing that's happening in digital health and in other domains. And in all the different sectors, we now understand that we need to bring more women's perspective inside, because everything that we're doing, we're re-innovating and rethinking. And when rethinking, we need to bring diversified thoughts into the table. And it's funny because one thing I'm always contemplating on is how are women thought of as a minority group when we're 51% of the world population? And this is something that has been in the back of my mind a lot. And today, what I'm going to do is take you in my world. In order to make it easy, I kind of separated the different modes. And then we're going to talk about each one. And as the future creators and thinkers, let's not only see how we automate and digitalize things, but how can we use technology in order to rethink and to broaden our solutions. So you're going to be with me. We're just going to do this. So we can start. So the first is private vehicles. You can click again. So this is a female dummy in crash tests. So female dummies in crash tests were only introduced in the 70s, kind of late. And not only that, they don't even match a woman's body. They are just a smaller version of a man's body, and they're actually in the 5th percentile of women. This means that only 5% of the women are smaller than this dummy. Okay? So you can understand that it doesn't really match the woman female form, where we're all different shapes and sizes. And today this comes to these numbers. So women are 73% more prone to be injured in fatal accidents. They're 17% more prone to die. And they're not even the most people that are causing the fatal accidents, because most fatal accidents today are caused by men, because they tend to take more risk, so they drive more carelessly, and usually also tend to drive more under influence. So just putting a pin on that, we can continue. When there's a car in the household, research shows that men have mostly the access to it. They tend to use it more to go to work. And women usually are the ones also doing around the errands and things like that, are left to use other transportation modes. Click. So what I think is, now we're looking at autonomous vehicles, right? We're going to take the man or the human out of their, we're good? Okay, perfect. You can click. I don't know if you've seen this. This is an autonomous vehicle that Google is developing. So basically, all of the vehicles will one day be autonomous. A computer will drive better than the human being itself. We're going to lower accidents, which is a great thing. But when I'm thinking about this, I'm thinking about everything that we're creating in cabin sensing. So today we have a lot of technologies that can look and see where the driver is looking at, if they're driving under influence, if they're going to have a heart attack or epileptic attack. Maybe in someday, not too long, but the taxi that will pick you up will say, you know, your vital signs are not the same as it was 3 months ago. Do you want the next car that picks you up to have some kind of health check on it? And I say, okay, all of this is great, and I'm all for all of this technology, but why don't we use this technology to scan our bodies, to understand our shapes and forms, to adapt the seat belt, and all of that that is needed. By the way, FYI, seat belts for women in their 3rd trimester, which I just started last week, they do not match 60% of women in their 3rd trimester. So right now it's really dangerous for me to enter a vehicle. Just, you know, fun fact. By the way, I didn't say also in my intro that I've developed this new superpower of creating humans now, and I'm carrying 2 twin girls, future girls in mobility, so. So if we look at public transportation, it's no secret that women, they have salaries that are 30% less of men. So they're less prone to own a vehicle. By the way, this is why I did the workshop this week, because we need to negotiate, okay? Today, when I write an email with an offer, I write it all the way down. Everything is perfect to send. Before I send, I raise 30% the price and then click send, okay? So just a trick for young women onwards, even older women, it's a great trick. So if we look at public transportation, today public transportation is designed to handle peak hours. And today peak hours are rush hours. And this is a very manly thought, engineered way. How do we get a lot of people to work in the morning and get them back in the evening? But women that do 75% of the unpaid work in the world, and this is, you can fact check me on all these numbers. A lot of research went into this, and this number came back in a lot of different researches. So women do, I'll say it again just so we can hear that, women do 75% of unpaid work at home, meaning taking care of the kids, running the errands, taking care of the parents, taking care of all the family members, and taking care of a lot of people other than themselves. And this also influences their travel patterns. So being in mobility and using mobility, they actually travel less kilometers and do more stops. I'm going to drink because one of the side effects of pregnancy is shortness of breath, which I've been feeling a lot. So, women which do less kilometers and more stops are actually perfect clients for public transportation. But midday, early afternoons, they're actually usually less apart. So, this was about a month or two ago. I was invited to the British ambassador's house to be a part of a roundtable talking about sexual harassment in public transportation, which is a real deal. A lot of cities and municipalities and public transportation operators are dealing with that right now. That's the ambassador in the middle of the glasses. On his left is the Ministress of Transportation in Israel, and I'm on his right. And we had in Zoom people from the UK. And they said that now they're working on this new procedure that you will be able to file a sexual harassment report, and people, they will put officers which are in charge of that. And when it was my turn, and I'm like the technology nerd, I'm like, why do you think that a woman going to work, if it's going to be a mild sexual harassment, she's probably going to brush it off and continue her day, instead of stopping everything, being late to work, going to talk to an officer, filing a report. And why do we address this in such an old way? if we have technology today, we use usually in Homeland Security, we can use technology that can scan right now everyone, measure everyone's heartbeat, and see if one of you guys are feeling discomfort, if you're maybe your heart is racing, you're sweating, or something is different, right, with you. And why don't we use this type of technology to see if anyone is feeling uncomfortable on a bus or on a train. Right now there are still drivers driving, so you can actually, you know, have some kind of alert and attend that person. So what I love that we are evolving to is on-demand mobility. Because on-demand, you don't need to plan anything. The demand answers the buses, they answer the shuttles, they answer the cars, right? We can just order when we need it instead of waiting for it to be served. What we do need to think here is how do we broaden the solution? So how can we be able to make this type of mobility adaptable with strollers, with baby seats, being able to bring on all types of family members onto this shared mobility. Via, do you know Via? So on Women's Day, they actually posted in Israel that 65% of their users are female, are women. And this exactly shows that, you know, regular public transportation isn't answering everything that they need, and this on-demand flexible mobility that you can move around quickly in the city really is giving something new to the table. And one of these things also creating, when we're thinking accessibility, okay, and inclusivity, these are words that are very important today, especially if you're writing grants to the European Commission, urban mobility, and so forth. So having the driver know who is the next person that is going to come on your vehicle is something that is crucial for inclusivity. Because if it's someone that needs help, some kind of assistance, then they'll be able to attend them more easily. Yesterday, flying in here, I just walked into the airport and said, how do we make this more accessible on the flight? And once you share data and share a need, then it's really easy and people can help you. So why not use digitalization today to do that? Our phones know everything about us, and technology can know even more today with computer vision. We shouldn't need, okay, to fight for things. They should just be all known. Next. So in the past few years, thank you, a new word arose. It's called micromobility. No one knew what it was 4 or 5 years ago. It was either cycling or, you know, bicycles or things like that. And today we have a new word for it. So research showed that 1 in every 4 women use micromobility as opposed to 1 in every 2 men. The only place in the world I saw that more women own bicycles than men is only Denmark and Netherlands. Other than that, the whole world is this statistic. So what happens is, like on one hand you'd say, if we talked about, you know, smaller kilometers, running errands, stopping a lot, micromobility is a perfect solution. But women don't feel safe enough on these. So what we need to ensure today is A, more bike lanes, B, more bike lanes on side streets, because it shows that even if it's going to be on side streets, it's going to enhance safety and to make sure that they're lit. What we did, this is a bike share that was launched in Tel Aviv in 2011. They were so proud that they launched this bicycle that is going to be shared for all citizens, but it was way too high and way too heavy. So all small people couldn't really use them. And today, 11 years later, they're changing the whole fleet to a bicycle that can actually be used by all of the citizens. And they learn that they need the basket also for running the errands, for, using it as a city commodity, as a city tool. What we did in Women in Mobility, we did this event called Women Lead Micromobility, and we created a safe zone for them to try e-scooters. We brought instructors, and this really worked because women of all ages from 20 to 60 tried for the first time e-scooters and loved it. They were hooked. And they said that now after they tried it for the first time, they will use it more often. Again. So, again, not everything needs to be super high thought of technologies. We can also just rethink and reshift. What they did in Sweden was, they know that women use less of vehicles, they're more prone to walking and cycling, so they switched priorities around. Whenever it snows now, instead of first going to clear the road from snow, they're now clearing pedestrians and bicycle lanes first. So they can actually help people in the morning get to work safely. And actually, another fun fact is that pedestrians are 3 times more likely to get injured on a snowy day, more than even motorists, okay? From a single car accident. This means that the car is hitting people. Also, more women. So what they did is that they're not only clearing roads, they're clearing roads for A, getting children to kindergartens, B, big places of workplaces that are women-led, so hospitals and municipalities, and C, to schools where children don't have a driver license yet. So just rethinking and reshifting this, you can really enhance safety just by reprioritizing. In Italy, what they used is paint and a sign. So most of the women will know this. You're alone at night, walking back to your car in a parking lot, and all you hear is this, right? This is like a horror movie, yeah? I see your faces. This is like a horror movie. Walking alone to your car, it's dark, our parking space underneath the ground. Usually my trick is to put a key, you're speaking of the key, to put the key between my fingers, yeah? Exactly. My grandmother's brother from Morocco taught me this trick, and whenever I walk in the street and I'm afraid, I put the key and I walk. So what they did was they prioritized women parking spaces next to elevators to help women feel safer. In Tel Aviv, they put cellular reception everywhere because they understood that a lot of women had someone escort them, when they're walking, just to make sure that they're okay. There's actually a startup called SafeUp that are women online ready for you whenever you want to escort you, and they actually help women walk more. Just to feel safe, just to know that you can have someone there. Good. So something that is reshifting in traffic management is visualization of this and real-time traffic management. So instead of, middle of the night, 2 a.m., you're alone in the intersection and you're standing in the red light, this shouldn't happen anymore in 2022. So now today we're doing optimization and using computer vision to understand the intersection, and then you can prioritize. What is happening in a lot of cities is that they're also using it to prioritize pedestrians and public transportation as well. So if the camera sees a pedestrian, they will put on the loop of, making it green for them to cross the road. What I say is, why are we only doing this in an automatic way? Why are we not using computer vision to understand if it's an older person that needs more time to cross the road? If it's a person with a small child that needs more time to cross the road? Why aren't we just clicking that loop and automating something, but still in a very old manner, instead of rethinking it all from the beginning and using it to actually customize and personalize the journey. And see, you know, for me, like the scariest thing always is old women, you know, when they're crossing the street, they started in green light and then becomes red and then they're running, and I'm just afraid all the time they're going to fall. So this is what I'm saying when it's not only automizing things, it's reshifting and rethinking and shifting the paradigm. So just to finish, mobility is a basic right for everyone, okay? And in creation of this new mobility, in creation of new products and new services, and we need more women to be a part of this creation, to be a part of bringing their perspective to the table and really giving another angle on things. And on a personal note, I must say that these are the best years to be a female founder. I think that in Israel there's only 5 to 6% female founders, although there's a lot of strong and independent women. It's a higher risk because it's blood, sweat, and tears, but it's the most rewarding time. There's so many grants, so much money, so many VCs now that are opening only for women. At our VC, we really look at the team. We want to see women-led startups or co-led, you know, but to see that the minds are diversified when this team is creating the future of mobility. So I hope I gave you a little bit of food for thought, and thank you. Thank you so much for inviting me. It's been an interesting journey.
Thank you very much, Orlie, for the very interesting keynote speak. At least from my point of view, was very interesting, and you gave us a very broad way of, and with a lot of numbers of looking at women and mobility. I don't think that there is a lot of people in the world that has thought about these issues for so long, like you, and from different points of view. So I do have a lot of questions, but we will have to leave it for later, because now we are starting the round table, and I'm going to ask our three speakers today to come to the stage. Georgia Ayfantopoulou, Georgia, Annika Paul, please, and Gibet, Camos. Thank you very much for being here. What we are going to do right now is a round table, but we are, or my job is to do it, interesting and quite dynamic. And the way that we are going to organize it is that I'm going to introduce and thank our three high-level speakers this afternoon, and then I'm going to ask 3 questions to each of them, and I'm going to ask you directly, one of you, so each one has the opportunity to start, because it's always a pain when you're always the last one to, to answer, because they take you all the ideas. And then we are going to open it to the public so that you can raise your hands and move on with these topics. The first two to introduce today is Georgia Ayfantopoulou. I'm sorry, I cannot pronounce your name properly. She's a research director of HIT in Thessaloniki, in Greece, and she's of the board of directors as well of the Thessaloniki Technology Park, that I guess that you are going to explain to us later what is this about. It sounds interesting. And on top of that, she created 3 companies, which is something that we will we will touch in the course that we are launching today. I think that it's important to have this perspective as well. So thank you very much for being here.
Thank you for the invitation.
The second is Dr. Annika Paul. She's an economist. She did a master's in airport pricing in Amsterdam, so a German in the Netherlands. That's not bad. And she did a PhD in European hub airports in Dresden in Germany, and she's now a senior researcher at Bauhaus-Luftfahrt in Munich in Germany. Thank you for being here as well. And our last speaker, last but not least, is Gibet Camos. She's actually a person that has an international background, even if she comes from Barcelona. Here in Catalan we have this speech saying, dona la volta al món i torna al Born. So do the round of the world and come back to the Born, which is a car, but it's also a quartier in Barcelona. And this is what she did. She studied at civil engineering here and in France as well. And she has international experience in France, always with transportation issues from the operator and from the public and private sectors, in France, in Asia, in Latin America, and for almost a year now is the international director at PMB. PMB is the transport authority, the public transport operator of buses in the metropolitan area of Barcelona. So thank you very much for being here. And I think that we have to be a little bit further. And I guess that I did not say it, but I'm Laia Pagès, Executive Director of CARNET. I've been here for 3 years now, and before that I was in Germany, in the US, and in France, always with transportation-related issues, with a PhD in optimization and bus demand prices. So let's start with questions, and I'm going to start with Georgia. Do you think that women's approach towards innovation, so when we want to think ahead, when we want to do new things, when we want to think about issues that are old but from another perspective, and urban mobility is different to men's approach?
Okay. I think it will not be today first time we will say that women have a different approach than men in general, and especially in innovation. So women are more dedicated to research and observation. We were doing it since ancient years. Okay, working in the caves, and when the men were going out for hunting, we were there. Women, they defined the time by observing the moon and correlate that with their changes in their body. So this type of observation and research is one of the main capabilities of the women, which opened the way to innovation. So very good understanding. The other qualification of women that is different than men is that because of their role, of their social role in the family, in the society, they're always problem-solving driven. So in fact, we see women being involved in innovation that at the end they are contributing to the quality of life, and that is very much related with the main issues and topics of urban mobility in our days. Also, women are more in the center of the societies. They know how to create and to apply rules for governance of small societies. Again, in the case where many families were staying together in the same cave. So they were really finding a way of surviving, and we see that also in our neighborhoods. And we see now women taking the initiatives in adopting sharing solutions, although they find difficulties in achieving the final objective, but they are taking the leadership in making our neighborhoods more let's say, livable and have the mobility to change. Finally, if I can say one more thing, I would say that they are more good in team working. And this is very important because the problems of urban mobility are very complex. So if we need teams, we need multidisciplinary approach, we need good understanding that comes from different points of view, and being a team player that makes you empowered for innovation. I think women have on all the previous are benefits, are good things for women compared to men. But there are one thing that is bad, that we're not doing well as men, and this is good risk-taking. Because we are mothers, we are daughters, we are aunties, we are friends, or whatever, we are learn to be more conscious, so to take decisions that will secure our next step. That means we are not learning to take risks, and innovation is always together with risk. In order to be innovative, you need to take risks. In order to create your small company, you need to take your risk of the failure. Sometimes this word failure is very difficult for the psychology of women. So failure is the way of making the next step, and making the better company, and making the bigger company, and find a solution that everybody will follow. So I think these are the points of differentiation I see.
Well, a lot of aspects, and thank you. And I'm not sure if maybe for Annika, you talked about research and the fact that women go into this kind of work that is compared to men in a different approach. I don't know if your position as a researcher allows you to develop further in this point, or always answering to the question, do you think women's approach towards innovation and urban mobility is different to men's approach or not?
Maybe from my perspective, as you mentioned earlier, I'm not that much focused on urban mobility, but on the longer distance mobility, because I work in aviation, but I see the same thing happening there, that we have different development paths of the women working in that area, and therefore they have different perspectives that they bring in when we have different projects that we work on, innovation that we are developing in our area. Because what we do, for example, we look at future concepts in aviation, how are we going to reduce emissions, for example, in that particular sector, how are we going to make flying much more comfortable for certain passengers, and some of these passengers are women with children, with taking care of their families, bringing them from A to B, planning the holidays, and all this knowledge, all this experience is also flowing into these innovative processes, projects that we have. And it's a very different perspective that is sometimes not taken care of if you work differently, if you don't have several aspects that you're not considering in your everyday life. And I think what's also maybe a different dimension or perspective also to be added to that, what I see in my daily work is the different backgrounds that we have. We have a very interdisciplinary team, for example, ranging from economists, from people coming from psychology, engineers, and so on and so forth. And this perspective is also very different. And this is something I think exciting, bringing that together and having that perspective and merging that and finding a solution, a compromise very often, how to bring that together. And I agree with you that it can be very different, but it's also very, enhancing the process, and also very fruitful and valuable to have these different perspectives. And maybe that is something also to think about. And I would agree with you as well in saying, listening to each other and taking this perspective into account is something very important, because this is how we can make a service, a product, an experience much better when we include all these different aspects instead of just one perspective, like you said before, like the way it has been in the past for quite some time, and enhancing that and enlarging all this area.
Absolutely, yeah. Completely agree. And then finally to Gibet, maybe from the point of view of the operator, no, where you are now, the position of PMB, do you think that women's approach towards innovation, or even projects that you have in your real day-to-day life, and urban mobility is different to the men's approach?
Thank you, Laia. Thanks for inviting me to join this amazing panelist. And also, I was amazed with the keynote speaker also. What I think is that also based on my experience, having studied civil engineering, I would have loved actually having female professors also teaching me transport planning and having into account several of the ideas that we were mentioning here. From my current company, so the public transport operator for the bus and metro networks in Barcelona, we are trying to include more diversity actually in all our activities. and especially what we are also getting focused on, and the keynote speaker was also mentioning it before, is on security issues. Because we think that depending also on your gender, your perception of security is different on the public transport network, and also what you were also mentioning before on the percentage of women who are actually our clients. So we are working hard on this, and also considering that the activities are not only going to work, but also having to take care of kids, parents, or also going to buy things that we need them to carry in the public transportation. So, for example, we have worked a lot in the past few years on improving the accessibility of our network. And I think within Europe, Barcelona has really made one of the bigger exercises on really making it accessible for all our users, and of course also for women who need to use this transportation mode in our cities. I would like to add something also on collaboration and how to work together, because both of you already mentioned the idea, but I think it's very important. I think that really when women get into these transportation planning teams and get into this collaborative thinking, we can really get to very interesting results, and that's what we are also trying to do within our company.
Yeah, actually it's something that Annika already said, no? This transdisciplinary thing that we have. All this transdisciplinary and multi-ethic and different profiles at the end that enrich each other from working together. And this is now a question for you, Annika, linking what Gibet was saying. If we consider an example of innovation in your field, of course in aviation, not really urban, but a little bit in the another scale, but to go from urban to urban you need a plane. So if you give an example of an innovation project or initiative or work which the gender perspective has not been taken into account in the past or in your professional experience. For example, Orlie talked about these dummies. No, I've been in these safety issues many years ago, and I had never thought it's true. We always use dummies, but they were men. I had never thought about putting a form of a female in these dummies, and it's completely true because half of the population is women. And have you thought, or could you give us an example of a project where this gender was not really taken into account?
Maybe something that is also closely relating to mobility and what we heard before, what we do in aviation is we look at door-to-door travel chains. So someone starting your journey at home and then getting to the airport, taking a plane, and then getting to your final destination. So that's all these different segments of that trip. And in the past, a lot of projects on European level, they talked about how can we optimize that, how can we get people much quicker from A to B, so reducing it to under 4 hours within Europe and making everything shorter and much quicker. And the question in that is that what passengers, especially female passengers, really want? Do you want to get as quickly as possible from door to door and be back as quickly as possible? Or do you want to have a comfortable journey and everything having organized for you and not carrying your luggage along? Because, as we heard before, maybe you have to take care of your family, you have to organize the school trip in the morning, you have to drop your family off at some places, and then you have to go to the airport. Of course you want to be quick, but you want to have everything organized. And I think this is something which is growing much stronger, that we're not just talking about passengers being leisure passengers and going on vacation, or passengers traveling for business purposes, but that we have a more differentiated picture now, and the female passenger is gaining much more importance in regard to safety issues, but also how do you want to travel when you go on an air trip? What do you want to do at the airport? Do you want to work? Are you taking your entire family? And what will be a nice way to entertain your family, maybe your kids, to have your luggage handled? So talking about these services that can be booked in advance, for example, areas at the airport that you want to have. And I think this is something which has not been represented that much and which we need to put more emphasis on. Of course, talking about aviation and looking at an airline, they want to optimize their revenues, of course, earn money with passengers being on board, so you don't get extra legroom if you're not paying for it, or you don't get an extra seat for your child to lay down, for example, if you're not paying for it. But this is something maybe to consider in the future. How do you make the trip more comfortable for women and everything associated with that? So whether you're going on a vacation or whether you're going on a business trip, I think this is very different as well. And I think the safety aspect is something to be considered as well. Because if you get home at night, you arrive at the airport, and then you have to take public transport home, for example, and it's very late, and maybe you have company restrictions or something like that that are not paying for a taxi, for example, but you feel really uncomfortable. So these things have to be considered as well, and you have to have a platform where you can mention something like that, for example, because I don't think at the moment this is actually happening. You can't sort of phrase what you're feeling, what your needs are, because at the end someone has to pay for it, I think. But
Well,
maybe
if
this
there
is
is
an
a
opportunity
business
also.
model behind it, and
Exactly,
someone makes
yes.
money out of it, the point is who makes the money out of it.
Yeah.
I
And I think-
remember Annika Paul was the CEO of CERTH some time ago, and we had a moment where we had to think about, we are thinking about, autonomous driving in the future, and then there were all these questions and all these projects of what do we do with the car, what are people going to do when they go to point one to B, they are going to do, they are going to study in the car, they are going to do a part in the car because you don't really need to drive, and there was a very good speech where he said, okay, we are not an entertainment company. Someone else will make money out of it. I am not against that, but we make cars. And I think this is the point. If someone thinks about it, then why not?
And I think there are good opportunities in the future. Yeah.
And maybe this links to Gibet, as a transit operator. So what you have been here just a year, but do you think that there are examples of innovative projects within your company or in your past experience that these issues were not taken into account?
Well, I think here in Barcelona we have also been working on plans against sexual harassment, actually in public transportation. And I think the interesting part of this process, where actually we recently had a recognition also for the International Union of Public Transportation in February, because this is a global plan. Like, we're not only focusing on one specific part of the topic. We are really trying to not only add more cameras, improve the lighting of some points of our networks, and several of these initiatives, but we are also, I think one of the most important parts is also coordinating, of course, with security forces and other people, other stakeholders who need to intervene when there is sexual harassment. But also, I think one of the most interesting parts is also the training that we're giving to our staff, because you don't necessarily, when you sell the metro tickets or when you are working on some technical issues on the metro network, you don't necessarily know how you should address to a woman who has just lived a difficult situation with sexual harassment. So basically, this is also a very important effort that we are making with our staff to also help them to be able to address these situations when they happen in our network. Of course, also all the, as I was mentioning before, the cameras, the lighting, and improving these things. We are also working with our innovation department on not only thinking about solutions within our company, but also working actually with some educational centers, universities, to work on challenges towards working also on improving security in our network, and also, thinking specifically about gender. So we are also, for example, for people from Barcelona, there is this long metro corridor between two lines in Passeig de Gràcia, which actually, I mean, even me when I was a student here, I would always avoid that corridor because for a young woman, I mean, I don't know, it's not comfortable. We are working now with the school on a challenge to also to think about new ideas of how to improve it, and I think it's also very interesting, not only thinking about it internally within the company, but also with other stakeholders and other users from the network. So we are working on it. Of course, there is a long way to go still, but I think that we are very conscious that we need to start, and we are making small steps, and hope we get there soon.
If I can add that this tunnel is an underground tunnel that is 3,000 kilometers long in the mid-center of Barcelona. It's not very nice for men either. It's a challenge out of the center. And I don't know, we start talking about issues in real life, in sensorization and things like that. I guess that you have a lot of experience in this field. Go ahead if you have.
Yeah, I would like to tackle differently a little bit what you're challenging
Please.
about the failures in the projects, and it is about empowering women in decision making. And in Thessaloniki we have a living lab, a smart mobility living lab. So all the actors, whether they're bicycle sharing bicycle or sharing scooters or public transport operators or in the traffic management control center, they're giving us data, giving us information. So since 2012, and then we implement the studies on identifying what are the needs, on how, what are the problems, creating common understanding of the different actors about what is the problem of the city in order to find a better solution. So there was a period, we started in 2012, there was a period that, it was about data, technologies, ideas, everything. Men were around the table, we had meetings, and the almost the only woman who coordinated the solutions. We have a problem, we need a new technology, okay, let's introduce the technology, innovative technology. And at the moment we said, okay, let's bring the society in the living lab. So let's ask, let's see what we can do in order to make the citizens be part of it, and giving us the opinion, what are the technology to engage them, so how we do it. Citizen platforms and these kind of things. And we were in the meeting and nobody could give any idea of how to do it. There was people from the municipalities, there were people from technology providers, the people from service providers. And then I suggested that we make another meeting, and all of them, they will try to send a woman in the next meeting. First of all, it took us a lot of weeks to have the women around, because of course to identify a woman that they want to empower and send as representative in it was a little bit issue. It was not all of them women that they came at the next meeting. And it was, however, some good women with very good knowledge, because we have a lot of women in the public sector, also also the universities, also in the municipalities. So smoothly, very good ideas of how this living lab, what type of platforms, what type of services we should develop in order to bring the citizens with them came. Why? Because women are the community, they are the team makers, they are the collaboration, talking, as I said before, with their network is something that is very, very common for them. Also, if you think women are the best users of any innovation along the years. From the washing machine, the first washing machine that we gave in order to wash our dishes and not dry, until the robots, and today, always women are those by majority that they are experiencing the using, so they have the capability. First to assess very well, to bring the requirement, because this is what we are lacking in urban mobility. We are developing a lot of innovative ideas, technological improvement at the end. User is not there, so we are not user-centric in creating innovation. I will not forget, it was an European Conference of Transport Research Institutes. We keep the presidents of this conference, and there was a meeting, and we had the German people from the LR saying, what is the problem of autonomous automated vehicles? And they said, okay, they asked people, what is problematic with the autonomous vehicle? What you and they created a list of 135 requirements, which was not there. But the car was there. The autonomous automated prototype of bus to operate was there. And then you have the mother saying, I want a panic room in order my children to be able to enter if there is a problem. I want a panic button. I want a camera. I want nothing to move more than this speed. So the requirements were not there. So we're doing this wrong thing while innovating in solutions. It was the same as Laia said with the scooter, huh? The electric scooter. Women was not there. Heavy women or pregnant women cannot go on this. So we need some training. We need some capacity. So it's very important to empower women. Empowering women in expressing your opinion, assessing solutions, in driving the way of how the society will use the innovation. Because it's nice to have VCs to fund innovations, but we need to have the users on board these innovations. And women are very important.
User-centric innovation, user in a very broad sense. That's important. And then I'm going to go to the last question, and as usual, we don't have a lot of time. So it's going to be almost a yes or no question with a little bit of explanation, of course. And I'm going to start with Gibet. Do you consider there is equality in your sector, now as MD or as well in the past? I guess that as a student not much, but then...
So this is a yes or no question. That's tough. Why should I start?
That's just a way to make it short.
Well, I must say, let me start only by this. I think this is the first time in my professional career, since I started working 16 years ago, that I have an all-woman panel. I am taking part of an all-woman panel, because usually it's all the way around. Usually I'm very often, too often, the only woman in the room. I started, sorry, this is not from my company, this is my professional experience, but I remember my first job with the World Bank. I was working on urban transport projects in the South Caucasus, and so before starting a meeting, I was always the only woman around the table, and before starting the meeting, they were all looking at me, all men, because they thought either I was the interpreter, either I was the one bringing coffee or tea at the table. So I was like, I didn't understand, I didn't get it, so I kept moving on with my professional experiences, always amazing in the urban mobility field, and I thought, you know, there were not so many problems when you're a good student. No, this is typical also from girls. No, you think because you're a good student you will get there, and so, for example, when I was offered in France the first position in operations, I was offered to lead the opening of a new tram line to build the team of 150 people who were going to drive and operate and regulate that tram line in the north of Paris. And I was I felt, wow, so lucky to have that challenge in front of me. I actually disagree a little bit with what you said before, that we don't take risks, because I think here we have an amazing band of women who take risks, and I think we do take a lot of risks, and often much more risk than some men around us. However, I had to hire people for that team, and I had to hire within the company and within bus drivers, so you know, it was already a defined population. And I did it very bad, because my team of 150 people, we were only 3 women, counting me. So, you know, there were no female candidates to come and drive that tram, even if a woman was leading the team. I was really bad. I felt I didn't do things well. So actually, no, I think this is definitely a sector where we need more women to sit at the table and to come to also to leadership positions. But I think it's not that easy, at least from my experience, where I have always worked in the public sector, and in public companies, I think you definitely need also some help from other women. I was very lucky in France to get help from other professional colleagues, women, who helped me also choose the right way, I think, or the best way, because also at some age you get to that saving glass when you start thinking about maternities and about balances between work life and your personal development. And I think that we have a lot to do still, even when you work in the public sector, or I think also in the private sector, and you need good coaching. So I think maybe with this course you will also give some fantastic tools for development of professional women in urban mobility, and also good sponsors. You also need those sponsors who help you and who give you the opportunity, also Nelson was mentioning at the beginning, and to go and also make mistakes on the way, and that's also part of our urban mobility issues.
Annika, I'm not sure if you should be the next one to answer from your point of view, that if you consider that there is equality in your sector, aviation sector is mainly men's sector, I suppose, or I have this idea. What can you give us?
Yeah, I would opt for the economist's answer and saying it depends. So you get a lot of male-dominated areas within aviation. For example, if you look at the pilot sector, I think it's 5 to 7% at the moment are female pilots, for example. On the other hand, I would say in research and in the area that I'm working at, we're nearing or we're moving closer to equality. So we have a lot more female researchers in all different disciplines that are taking up the challenge, moving into that field and finding it very interesting. But I think, for example, if you look at maintenance, technical issues, it's still a very high share of men in these particular areas. So very different. And what came to my mind earlier, especially when I heard your keynote speech and when I talked to you earlier, I think it's very important that we see other women in these roles and doing things, because you might know the saying, I think it's by maybe Daniel Kahneman, it says, what you see is all there is. And that's often the case. If you don't see someone that you don't identify with, maybe even unconsciously, you're maybe not taking up a particular path. And I think that's why it's very important to see other women in these roles and see how well they're doing, maybe not doing well at some stages, but to be inspired and say something like, oh, this is something that I can do as well. And I think this is what we also need a bit more in certain areas, maybe in aviation as well, taking up these roles and maybe putting them also on a prominent platform, but to show someone, okay, this is something that you can actually do and where you can move forward to. So I think that's very important.
Yes, this role is very important, and I just to add to that, I wrote actually a couple of weeks ago that the supercomputing center here in Barcelona is starting to do this. Well, they are not online anymore, but these visits for young girls, and actually the person who is explaining this is a woman, and I thought that was a good. Well, I would thought that at least the person who explains you what a supercomputer is a woman, so that you know these young girls have this scenario of a woman and a supercomputer as a role, as you were saying. So, and Georgia, yes or no? So do you consider there is equality in your sector?
So in research, it was already said that things are going better. I mean, we have more women being involved in research for all the reasons we said, the qualification we have. Also because we are paid 30% less than men. The research does not have a lot of money. So if you want a prosperous career with less money, go to the research. So probably this is why I did research. But I'm joking on that. What is missing is the leadership, women in leadership of research. And I say that because I had a fight some years ago with the previous president of Center of Research and Technology, where Hellenic Institute of Transport is one only institute. So he was speaking and he said, okay, we can give, of course, additional money. We know that we have golden boys here, the researchers, that they bring a lot of money, they are very competitive, they have a big team, so of course they need to find a way. And they said, you might have also golden girls. Can you please look on your figures and come again and say if there are only golden boys or only golden girls, although the whole approach was stupid to my opinion, but in any case. So, and that's for research, but for innovation I would like to make another point. When you are in innovation, because Leila said about the thinking technology part, which is an innovation, let's say, idea that project that I'm involved there, if you ask for somebody to be CEO of technology park, of an innovation hub, there are not many women there. Huh? Why? Because innovation is a very complicated thing. Managing innovation is also more complicated. Complicated things we don't give them to the people, women, that they can handle complicated solutions. We give it to others that they simplify it to men. So that is also something that we need to change. In research is different than innovation. Making leadership and having women leaders in innovation is a different process. It needs a paradigm shift. And at the end, whatever we will do, even with inspiration, I think we need a legislative framework in Europe that will oblige that in research, in education, in business, we need to have, also in parliaments, a percentage of women there.
We are starting a very complicated topic, quota, which we think that we can handle with that another time, maybe. And now I'm going to ask to the audience. We have the opportunity to, ask whatever you feel like asking. We have Georgia, Annika, or Gibet to answer your questions. Just raise your hand. Please present yourself first and ask. Thank you.
Well, I'm Annika Martinez, and I'm a professor at the UPC, and also part of this program. And well, I have a question that is, some months ago, I was speaking with a female professor from Italy, from our field, and she's like very good. And I talked to her about this women in urban mobility problem. I was kind of surprised because she said that, for her opinion, this kind of projects of networks for female women are not necessary anymore. She said that nowadays women can do what they want, and I agree with this. So if girls want to study civil engineering, they can do, or economics, or so we can do what we want. But I try to, so from my point of view, I try to explain here that these kind of things that, for example, this example that Orlie said, so in projects, in innovation, in a lot of fields, this gender perspective is missed. And I was surprised because she was a woman, but my question is, do you think that we can do this alone, trying to encourage ourselves, or do you think that we need to tell the rest of the world, so men and also some women, that these kind of initiatives are necessary? The quotas, this kind of projects that try to visualize women. So this is can we do this alone, or do we need the support of men and other bodies?
Okay, I don't understand this network as a network of women.
Well,
I understand.
This kind of initiatives in which women are together and we can exchange ideas and these kind of solutions. So I think this is necessary for us, but perhaps also it's necessary that we communicate these kind of things to men, because men are also in the world. So, and well, I don't know if you think that this is like this, or perhaps we can alone.
So, raising the issues and identifying the barriers is definitely women work. Absolutely, the people that are imposed, they have the impact. Of course, they need to stand up and define the problem. Okay. Now, alleviating the barriers and making the situation to change. Then, of course, you need the whole society to not say I neglect the men and
That's my point.
absolutely. But this is each one of the people in this research, innovation, academia, business of future mobility needs to be there in order to secure the alleviation of the barriers, because there are barriers for women, and they needs to be alleviated for the good of the future mobility, not of the good of the women, for the good of the future mobility.
I just wanted to say I agree that we still need these networks, and it's not about excluding people, but including more people into mobility and into the topics. And I think what you said earlier with the panel, that it's usually male and then one woman, and as long as if it's still a surprise that there's an all-female panel, I think we still have to do a lot of work.
And congratulations that you're doing, Laia, yourself and the project.
I think also it is important because, but I have found the same situation also even at work in Barcelona and in other places, that other women sometimes do not see this need and honestly, I have also had the observation sometimes that because you are a woman and there are not so many qualified women who have got to this kind of position, that maybe that's why you got a specific position. And honestly, I mean, it gets me really upset because I think here it is very interesting today that we have a very representative audience. We are here, both women and men, and I think it's not only a matter of including gender diversity, but also diversity in a broad way. And also, I think that is something on which, from my current company, we're really working a lot, like including diversity in a broader way. But it's not easy because I have had the same situation that you, and yeah, I think it's very difficult to handle when you know that, on the other hand, sometimes they tell that you are there because you're a woman, which is not necessarily true.
I can say that in Women in Mobility, it's a network of women, but lately there's some events that, you know, I share that men are invited as well, as we're inclusive. So one, I told my husband also that I'm very happy to see such a diverse audience, and I think that one of my key takeaways from researching everything was not only how do we include more women, but how do we also empower men to take on all of the unpaid labor. How do we empower men? You know, today they empower them to take maternity leaves, but how do we empower men also that it's okay that they can leave twice a week to take children out? And also, when I started Women in Mobility, I saw like more and more CEOs from startups came to me and they said, we want to hire more women. We feel like we're not getting enough applicants, and now at the VC, we're hiring a business analyst. And it's not only that women are paid 30% less, it's that they're asking 30% less. So every time I ask a candidate their salary expectations, women are stating lower numbers. So just FYI, it's really okay to say higher numbers, and it's really okay to negotiate, because if I see a woman that's negotiating, and I feel like a lot of managers and companies, when someone negotiates with them their salary, their worth, it gives more confidence that these people will negotiate as well for their company. So I want to hire people who are understanding their worth, and that are saying, I'm worth it because I'm going to give to the company, and that the company will benefit from it as well. So, thank you. Yeah.
Can I have a question, Ronnie? Do you know any other women who is CEO of a VC around the world?
I don't know, I'm very new to the VC world. I'm actually a partner, I'm not the managing partner as well. And this was something also that for me it was, I was asked this if it was okay, like being a partner and not a managing partner, and I said, you know, for me it's okay, I have no ego, and it's okay for me to let someone else lead also, because being CEO for 4.5 years, you need to do a lot more of the headache. And now I'm getting used to being the one who's not leading, so that's a whole new thing. But yeah, usually VCs also, I think like a lot of things, in all domains. That's why I said it's not just in mobility, it's not just in VCs, it's not just in medical, it's in a lot of things. Last week we were in the hospital, and it said, so in Hebrew there's feminine and masculine for every word, and it said doctor's room, yeah, and you need your appointment. And it stated it in a male form on the screen in the hospital. And so we have a long, long way to go, and going back to this, we need more of networks of women, and we need women to take a bigger active part, because a lot of times we do networking events, we do these workshops. We did a workshop on public speaking because I wanted to see more women on stages, because I said if women don't see women on stages, they won't reach those places. But women are also putting themselves in priority lower than their home, their work, and all the tasks that they need to do. So a lot of the things that we need to do is artificially work on putting ourselves also in higher priorities, because naturally we take and we put everyone else in a higher priority. And this hit me in an airplane. You know, on the airplane you have always this video of first put the mask on your child, then on yourself. Because intuitively you will put it, first put the mask on yourself and then on your child, sorry. Because intuitively, and I said it, you will put it on your child first. But if you cannot breathe, no one can breathe around you. And if you will not put yourself in highest priority in an artificial way, then you'll never be able to give more abundance to the people around you. And I think that's something that's important.
We move to the next question. Please say your name, where you come from, and the question. Thank you.
I'm Annika Paul, I'm a law student from Colombia. I have actually two questions, one for Annika and one for Orlie. My question for you is, I think we all agree that every woman wants to travel comfortably, but I think that that solution is only going to include wealthy women, because traveling is expensive. So how do you plan on including all women and not only the ones that can afford it?
Yeah, that's a very good point. And I think that's up to the business model of airlines, probably. If they, as I said earlier, if they don't earn money, they probably don't offer particular services. And if we look at numbers who's actually flying, that's only a very small share of the population, of the global population, to be honest. And I think the first question might also be, how do we make mobility aviation more accessible for a lot more people, maybe? And yeah, I think that's a good question. I do not have the answer, because at the end it's about product, services, and what do you offer. But I think what needs to happen is a much more differentiated offer services that we see, and something that you might not be able to book or something like that, but places at the airport, there's a lot of free space when you look around that can be used for particular purposes, instead of just going, for example, having a table for your laptop or something like that, but having areas for children, for families to relax or something like that. So extending that offer. But at the end, it's about who's going to pay for that and what's the business model behind that.
And my question for you is, how do you, when you said that the buses and the public transportation can scan you and everything like that, how do you plan on abiding by the protection of data and security of people's lives?
Yeah, so privacy of data, when you scan a human for their body shape, you don't have to know their name, their social security number, and all of that. In the same specific moment, then all you need really is their body mass and shape in order to adapt, you know, the seat position, the seatbelt position, and all of that. That's the political right answer. My real answer is that I don't believe in privacy. I think that if you have this, then you're probably not private at all. I think that all of the European stress about it is okay. It's, you know, to stop, to have a, like, kind of, yeah, a little superficial, to have a saying about it. But I don't know, everyone has my credit card, everyone knows who I am. And I'm actually very comfortable with it. I pay with a click. I have advertisement that is personalized to me, so I'm good with it. And I don't believe in privacy. And I've said it in Switzerland. People were like, really?
Everywhere.
Very brave to say that.
And actually, also this is a very big issue of research. So we don't. It's for Europe it's different. But as Israeli, you have also different infrastructure to protect while open in privacy. We have much more infrastructure as in Europe to protect the good privacy, the good use of your data. And so in Europe right now, we have a prime minister or a minister who says, because we're expecting cyber attack in many systems of Europe, so they invite the European citizens to buy and to keep in their houses, some products that they will need. So it's a different way of thinking in the society, but also it's a difference of capacity, the level of maturity, technological maturity, to protect a policy of open private or open data. Not open data is a different thing of privacy.
Yeah, it's a whole conversation. And by the way, I totally agree, because I was cheap on business class flights coming here, and I was like the whole flight really struggling. So I completely understand the question of really comfort and leisure and travel. Like, how do we make it for all?
Yeah, actually, that's what I want to say. It's not just for the women. It's for all. Equity in future mobility, it's a big issue. It's a big issue. Mobility as a service means that not all the areas of a city is going to have the same level of service as they have now by public transport. Because probably public transport will not operate in some areas because it will not be proved economically viable. So it's going to be mass operators. To pay what, for what, on the basis of what tarification system. So this is a big challenge. It's a big challenge, and I believe we need to go and to work about equity for future mobility. It's a very big issue, and there you will see it's not only about women, but it's going to be fat women, thin women, old women, and for all the people actually, not only for women.
We have time for one more question. Please go ahead.
Hello. First, I would like to introduce myself a little bit. I am an industry. I'm a data analyst, data scientist. And in the data field, we have like a huge problem. That is the data we use to train the models. If you use biased data, you're going to obtain biased result. So if we train our models with data that has this more that enhance more men than women, for example, then the result is going to carry the same bias. So you talk about like adapting the public transport or adapting the transport to like different behaviors in terms of women, because women they carry their child or they we behave differently. Doing these changes, assuming that the women behaves differently in this kind of things, it's not going to be a point to enhance that the future that women are going to still carrying these responsibilities. And what can we do from mobility to enhance the culture that not only women has to do these things, men has to do it as well. Thank you.
It's in your, I'm not the moderator. You're not, please, okay, no, you're not the moderator. No, it's in your field. Come on, say. Go ahead. I might say something a mistake. I'm not sure, because you put a problem in 3 levels, so I cannot answer in all the 3 levels, to be honest. Okay, so one thing is, okay, we say that we we do also a lot of data analyst and AI models and whatever. Because we say that in fact we will going to create very dynamic solutions. And making very dynamic solutions, you also believe that the technology empowers you or gives you the possibility to give customized solutions. So I will take into account, because I will study how the women is going to react. And I'm going to how the man is going to react. And I'm going to the service. For using a multimodal, I don't know, whatever solution in the city, in accordance to this behavior, to this specific behavior. I think we're overreacting. Huh? Okay, so AI, it's a very good tool. If data are there and are good, they are giving you the basis for making very good solutions, but not over-exaggerating. I mean, at the end, okay, there are different categories of users. We were doing that planning and the organization of operations of mobility on the basis of standard categories of users. Okay, we can multiply the number of these users, but we should not over-exaggerating, okay? So because then we come in what I understood is the third problem, the second I didn't understood it, that you mentioned, the third problem that, okay, if I make it so customized and giving the possibility to women, to take into account the women behaviors, how we will do it also for the men, for the others, and which is made very, very complicated. So technology is to solve things, not to complicate things. So the important thing is to have good data, because we don't have good data, and in order to have the data that you imagine, in order to take into account the behavior of the different categories of users, you need the users to provide you the data. And there is the privacy issue. Because if the question is, I'm going to allow through my mobile, and identify myself that I'm a woman of this age, and I'm moving there, and I have these habits, and then everybody is recording my data, and in accordance with that, we create AI, etc. That is the challenge. Okay? This is my answer. The second problem I didn't understand.
I think that you are exposing a societal problem, and I'm going to give you a transportation planning answer. When you optimize a problem, you have trips, and you don't know who these trips are being done by who, but there is people going from one point to the other, and you don't really care if it's a woman, if it's a man, if it's a child. You have to provide this supply for this demand, and you have to do the match. Asking your model if this trip is a woman or a man, and trying to solve with AI, and in the line that she was answering, with AI to make this societal change that if these trips are going to be done by women or men, this is not the right question for a planning system, because what you are doing is to optimize a problem, a system, and these trips, if they're in the system, it means that they are going to be done, and you as a traffic planner or an urban planner, you have to build your cities and build a system so that you give answer to this trip. And the question is not how we are going to move as a society so that these trips are not done by men or women, which is also a problem, but it's a societal problem. It's not a problem that we will solve or change with AI and models. And the bias of training models to give answers with biased data is, I think, as George has said, something that we have right now in our hands. But to build good models, we need good data. This is the strongest statement we have.
Thank you, Laia, because you made me understand what was the second problem. So that is planning. Okay, the planning, Laia is absolutely right. You need an average understanding of the phenomenon of the demand and supply in order to design the supply. But since speaking about services, innovative services that are dealing with operations, so if I can give a multimodal trip planner, taking into account that I'm a woman and I cannot walk more than 100 meters, so it is going to give me a multimodal choice that avoids me to have to do this painful, let's say, step. So yes, okay, we can go that if I open my data and I tell you what you can do it, but not overreacting. We cannot. Again, the services cannot be so much customized. So that at the end, it will create problems to the planning. If you be so dynamic in operation, then we need to be also dynamically rearrange the offer, so influence the planning. And that is something that research is looking right now. But okay, wait for some years.
But it's a very good question anyway.
You don't have the data anyway. Nobody's giving you.
Okay, so we finished the questions. I'm afraid we don't have any more time left, but I invite you to stay later on and ask your questions to any of us during the talk and the drinks. And now we are going to go to the next point in the agenda, and Elisa, our news, is going to explain to you what we are going to do next. I would like to thank you, our speakers. Thank you.
Okay, so thank you all for the questions. It's been a very important and very interesting panel. And one of the issues that have surfaced is how about and how can we empower women? So this is why we created this course that Margarita and Elisa from UPC, part of the Women in Urban Mobility Consortium, are going to explain to you. I'm going to give them the stage and go ahead. Thank you so much.
Well, thank you for the speakers. It was wonderful, very inspiring. Let's just say something about this project. This project is Women in Urban Mobility. It's the second edition, so we started in 2021 and this year is 2022. And we have different events like this one today. And we also organize some training for women and also something that she will tell. We also have some news this year. We will give a prize of a woman that is, let's say, a good leader in urban mobility. And this project is co-founded by EIT Urban Mobility. As partners, we have Utanema Tum, and they are the, let's say, the coordinators, the leaders of the projects. Here in Barcelona, we are Universitat Politècnica de Catalunya and CARNET, and in Bulgaria, we have Junior Achievement Bulgaria. And let me talk to you about this training that we organize. It's a training to empower women and to give them tools for innovate, for having other kind of skills to be leaders in this field. So many of the things that you have said today are in the course, starting by giving tools to women to be innovative. There are, here we have, okay. I didn't know. Okay, so here you have the features of the program. So there are 6 modules, and they start. We have 2 in June, 1 in September, 2 in October, and 1 in November. It's a full morning from 9 to 1 p.m. And these 6 modules, I was telling you about the contents of the modules. So 1 is 2 are more or less innovation and design thinking. The other 2 are negotiation skills that are so important, and also, let me remember. Yeah. The one of sailing, so we are sailing to take this course. And then you have like 2 modules, one for leadership, and the other one, the last one, is also for Module 6, no, actually it's Module 5 that I was working. It's working with a diverse team, with a multidisciplinary team. This is something that we also have mentioned today here. So you have these 6 modules, you can take them separately or all together, and if you take them all together, then you also have some, let's say, an opportunity to meet with other women in urban mobility, like having mentorships with peer-to-peer learning. Well, I think it's interesting. They will be part of this large network, and we are trying to empower women and maybe to do a shortcut of what these women that we have here today. So maybe dare to take this risk and be also a leader in urban mobility. And now, thank you, because I was talking and not looking at here. But we have some profiles, and let me just stress here the last one, which is what has been said here today. It's that women care about society, so we want also have women that believe in the power of communities and networking. So I leave the word to Margarita. So you can apply till May 21st. Okay.
Well, yes, I have already presented myself, but well, I'm here to give two surprises. Because the first surprise is, can we please name this? So this is something that the Susan Traubert, which is the leader of this project from Unternehmertum, has told me today. So if you want to participate in the course, please, you can have the opportunity to have like a discount. This is like in, I don't know, as in our day life, so we have this discount. But what I really want to present is the next thing, besides from the training course and from these kinds of events, we are also launching some awards. There are awards, of course, for women, and we have two categories. So the first category, thank you. The first category would be for a leading female innovator, and it's addressed to women that has already some experience and can be like a role for other women. So the only conditions are that her work has or had or is having an impact in Europe somehow. Because well, this project belongs to EIT, Urban Mobility, so we must be related it must be related to Europe or to some countries, some other countries like our partners or partners from EIT, Urban Mobility. And well, the prize is like the recognition, which is the most important thing, of course, and also we are going to give a small present, and we will invite this female leader to come to the last event of the year of this project, to come here to Barcelona, because we are going to celebrate somehow a nice event also with panelists and so on. So, and we hope that she wants to be our keynote speaker. And besides that, we have another category, and this is only addressed for the participants in the course. It's the same if you decide to participate in all the modules or only in one module, so you can also receive this prize. In fact, there are 9 prizes, so one like big prize and the other run-up awards. And this, so because the course is led by Unternehmertum and JA Bulgaria, so they are going to propose you some activities during the course. So the participants that are like the best ones or the more active ones will receive this award. So the first one, the most important one, will also consist in this invitation to come to the same event to Barcelona as panelists, and the other ones can also, and we hope we can come also to Barcelona, but in this case they are going to receive a grant. So I think we have, yes, the deadline. Okay, no, the deadline was before. I think the deadline is, if I remember it properly, at the end of July. And you have all the information in the website of the project, Women in Urban Mobility, and also we will post it in LinkedIn, Twitter, and so on. So I encourage you to take the risk to participate. So one more thing, for the first category, you can nominate yourself, which is very nice, but also you can be nominated, or you can nominate perhaps a woman that you know, and
that is not here or doesn't know about this award, so you can also nominate any women you want. Thank you very much. That is all from our part. I think Neus is going to close this event.
Well, it's been a real pleasure being here with you this evening. Before we close the event, there's someone else that has to be above mention, which is Annika. That's also part of the project. She is a very selfless woman, and she is a female empowerment because she was actually the one who told me, you should do the introduction, you should be the one to take charge. So without her, I literally wouldn't be here. So thank you for believing in women empowerment, and thank you for guiding me towards this project. And I encourage you all to take the course because I really think it's going to help you professionally, ethically, and morally. Thank you so much. And now I invite you to go outside. We're going to take a family picture, all of you. Thank you.